Hello and welcome to the Never Heard of It podcast. I'm Craig Moorhead, and I am joined by my co-pilot.
Your top guns, Craig. Shawn Harwell, that's me. And thank you, everybody, for listening once again to the podcast where we talk about movies that have fallen through our cracks, at least, and some of yours. Man, we're excited today because we do things a little bit differently, but nonetheless, please go visit neverheardpodcast.com, and you can find all our back episodes and go through... 50 whole episodes about nothing but movies that maybe you didn't see. Maybe there's some you shouldn't see,
right?
But they're still fun to hear about. And definitely a lot you should, because we've talked about some good crap. Some good
Shawn,
crap.
how much will it cost the good people out there to listen to this?
I can't even believe I'm about to say it. It's free. It's totally free.
That's a deal.
You don't even have to pay for headphones or an iPod. You just go steal that, and then it's even more free.
Totally. They're everywhere.
Mm-hmm. Home really invasion. Easy. That's what I'm talking about.
I guess, yeah.
Where else can they find us online, Craig?
They can find us, you can find us on Instagrams, which I guess is really just on your phone. Instagrams, Tweeters. We're at Never Podcast. Never Heard Podcast, of course. You already said that. And of course we're on Facebook, and you can find us there. You can recommend stuff. Just type in Never Heard of It Podcast, and then sort through the list of other things that are called Never Heard of It Podcast, and somewhere at the bottom should be us, and then you're there. Then join up and
life-changing, I think is the word you're looking for.
Life-changing.
Yeah.
That is the word I'm looking for, and that's the noise I make when I'm looking for a word. It happens a lot.
Yeah. Yes. So it's like an audible dictionary. Well, Craig, I have to tip my hat in your direction, because I think what we're going to do today was initially your brainchild, and I'm super excited about it. We had talked a little bit prior to settling on this about doing something that was a bit more of a project, or at least something that we could sink a couple episodes into, at least, and have a thematic connection for the listeners, take you on a little bit of a journey, and let's talk about what we decided to do, because I think it's a great idea, and I don't even really quite remember how we settled upon it, but I feel confident it was your idea.
Well, we were both drinking heavily, first of all, and I think, actually, you know what? I think of it, oddly enough, more as your brainchild.
Well, thanks.
But maybe it's both of our
It's an adopted brainchild, I think.
Yeah. No, but you had mentioned earlier about, doing sort of a deeper dive into one movie, maybe a sort of a longer format, get into things a little more deeply. I think you'd been listening to Hardcore History. And after you mentioned that, I started listening to it too. And I just thought, yeah, that would be an amazing podcast to listen to and to do. So we had been kind of chewing on that for a little while, and then I watched Goonies with my kids, and I thought I could talk about the stuff that's happening in this movie for a good 5 hours straight. I feel like there's so much going on in the movie and behind the scenes, and has gone on since then. It just felt like, man, we could blow this wide open. And I mentioned that to you, and then from there, it kind of snowballed into this thing where we felt like, let's look at all of the movies of 1985, and let's really kind of do a deep dive into those and see what are the ones that aren't talked about anymore, and versus the ones that are, and all that kind of stuff. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to kind of this is going to kind of be our foundational episode. We're going to kind of get into the history of the world, kind of say, set the scene a little bit of where these movies dropped. We're going to talk a little bit about our own youngnesses. Talk about our own childhoods around that time.
I always call that my youngnesses.
My youngness and yours.
Yeah.
But and kind of put some of these movies in perspective, and then and really talk about them. So one thing I'd like to say for anyone listening right now, if we've ever needed your feedback, I feel like it's now, because we're going to get into this now. But I mean, whatever thoughts you have, whatever bits of trivia you know, whatever movies you feel like are underappreciated maybe from the year 1985, things like that, man, please let us know. Because we'd both like to make this as comprehensive as possible as we kind of look at the year 1985 in movies.
It took all of about 5 seconds of looking at the Box Office Mojo page for this year to just, my jaw hit the floor. I cannot believe how many movies there are that I think left at least an impact on the pop culture landscape, whether they're good movies or bad movies, but just movies that I feel like are still in the collective consciousness. So obviously what that means is there's a lot of movies that people will have heard of, despite the name of the show. But what we're going to try to do is at least, when we get into the next episode and beyond, probably take a movie that is really, really well known like Goonies and then pair it with something that was at least less successful, like Explorers, which I was surprised to find out, and we'll get to this in a little bit, didn't do quite as well as it did in my head.
I was so surprised.
And there's another movie like D.A.R.Y.L. that might fit thematically. So there's a bunch of these. When you look at it as a whole, it's easy to see where the studios were trying to hit similar goalposts with a lot of these movies. And so I think that's kind of how we're going to form it. We'll keep you posted on the movies that we're going to do in these full kind of juicy episodes. But certainly, if there's a movie from 1985 that you remember that didn't get talked about a lot, that's not part of this crazy group of well-known movies, absolutely let us know. That would be great.
Agreed, Sean.
How old were you in 1985? I can't remember.
I was 10 and 11. So in June 11. I turned 11. So, yeah. I mean, almost the best age for movies ever. Yeah, I was. Especially in the 80s. I was 8. I was a ripe 8. So, I'm a little bit more of a youngness. But nonetheless. your youngness was greater than mine.
Yeah, and I think, obviously, we'll talk more, but, the prevalence of VHS in those stores in our lives, it certainly makes it possible where a movie from 1985 is still easily available and being watched by us in particular in 87, 88 and beyond, probably up until those, like, maybe we stopped in college a little bit and we're watching other crap, right. But, definitely we'll come back to all of these movies at some point in our lives.
Absolutely. No question about it.
What else was going on in 1985? Do you know?
Yeah, well, so here's the thing. In case you were a kid back then or you weren't even born, you millennials, I
hate you guys. I don't hate you guys. That's awesome that you're young.
Ronald Reagan was our president.
The actor?
You may know this already. The actor. He was originally an actor who became president.
Crazy.
And in 1985, so he had just been reelected the year before, running against Walter Mondale, if you remember that guy, which weirdly enough I do.
Yeah, I do too.
As a kid, I remember the guy. I grew up in a Republican household, so I knew that Reagan was a hero, and that's about all I knew. I actually knew parents of friends of mine who, they would talk about him like he was a movie star. They were his biggest fan, and they were just, just out of nowhere. I just love Ronald Reagan. And so now to look back and kind of see some of the stuff that was going on with him and think like, really? You love that guy?
Yeah, no, I was in that bubble too. As far as I know, he was like America. It was him and Bruce Springsteen, and they were like all together, and it was all a good time politically.
Yeah. Just no clue about anything really wrong on that spectrum.
Which is why I feel bad for kids today, because I feel like they know way too much, but without understanding it. Anyway.
I feel like there's no way around it. I think that's important to know.
Sure.
So President Reagan, he's starting his second term. There's already, a number of problems. The economy's not doing so great, although his approval ratings are about as high as they get around this time. So he's already gone through a terrible time.
Yeah.
Right after he was assassinated, his approval ratings dropped. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
It was assassination attempt.
If it wasn't, then he would have been dead.
Which we should point out, in that attempt has a movie connection to the film Taxi Driver.
Yes, it does.
Google it, kids.
Yeah, so this is also the year Rock Hudson dies of AIDS.
Yeah.
Which, again, as a kid, I definitely knew about that.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't really know who Rock Hudson was.
Nope.
But that's when I was like, AIDS, like, that sounds really scary.
Yeah.
My grandmother died of cancer. AIDS seemed like cancer to me. I was like, boy, that sounds horrible. Let's see. We Are the World was recorded in January.
Sure was.
Released later the year. Mm-hmm.
What a monster that was.
I know, right? I mean, that's another one you can't get rid of. New Coke was introduced.
And didn't last too long.
Lasted 3 months. And I remember trying New Coke, and it was terrible.
I remember New Coke as well. I've been told that at one of the corporate offices in Atlanta for Coke, there's a running clock on the wall that counts down how long it's been since the release of New Coke, just as a reminder never to go back to the... Well, I hope that's true. I don't know. Yeah. Somebody who's been recently, let me know. But yeah.
Well, it is interesting, and I'd like to look that up. I have no idea what was going on. Were they losing the cola wars or whatever was going on? And they were like,
that there is a screenplay in development about this entirely. I think it was on the blacklist. Yeah, a couple years. I don't know if it has any traction at the moment, but yeah, I feel like it's one I would watch with interest.
Next time you're in LA, could you get that greenlit?
Yeah, I'll make sure it happens.
Because I need to check that out.
Okay, cool.
Let's see. The FBI brings charges against the heads of 5 mafia families in NYC. I think Gotti is one of them. Yeah. Like, that's around this time. So it's like, oh man, what a I shouldn't say great time, but like, I mean, the mob in NYC was like crazy. Unabomber starts bombing.
Mm-hmm.
Discovery Channel was launched. Oh, and this is one of my favorites. This is one of my favorite things. And I didn't know about this when I was a kid, but if I did, I would have been obsessed with this. Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker, right, had been terrorizing, where was he? Well, I guess he was in Los Angeles. Had been like terrorizing Los Angeles, right? He's a serial killer.
Yep.
Sneaking into people's houses, doing awful things, and no one could catch him. It's this year, he is chased and captured by citizens in Los Angeles. If you don't know this story and how it goes down, you got to read up on it. Also, a friend of mine, Megan Griffiths, directed a movie called The Night Stalker for Lifetime a few years ago. Kind of covers this kind of stuff. Check it out. It's one of the best endings to any terrifying serial killer story, true life story. It's awesome.
And coming from you, that holds a lot of weight because that's your forte there.
Oh, it's my forte. Nintendo Entertainment System was released in U.S. stores.
Yes, it was.
Calvin and Hobbes debuted.
Mm-hmm.
Windows 1.0 was released.
Yay.
And Amadeus wins Best Picture in March. Is that correct?
I think that is correct. So. Yes.
Yeah, because that was... Yep.
That was an 84 film. Yeah.
That was an 84 film. Yeah, so that's kind of where we were as a country in the midst of the Cold War to an extent. I remember as a kid worrying about nuclear bombs even more than I'm worried right now.
Which is saying something.
It is. I remember my mom had to have a talk with me where she was just like, are you like worried that's going to happen?
Yeah, Mom.
And I was like, hell yeah,
I am.
And my mom was like, I didn't start the fire. I was like, all right, whoa.
Jeez.
But what about you, Shawn? Like, where were you at this time in history?
Let's see. I guess I was in school, basically, and that was pretty much it. That was the only thing happening in my life whatsoever. I was probably rocking my Michael Jackson Thriller shirt, even though we've talked about how scared I was of the music video. And movies are definitely making their way into my house around this time. We had a VHS player pretty early on, and I remember somehow borrowing like did they have Laserdisc at the time, or there was some sort of disc format? They
had video discs.
Okay.
Which I guess were Laserdiscs, but Were they the kind that were like a disc, like they were in sort of a plastic thing that you had to put in?
They were gigantic. Okay, yeah. And I don't. Whatever this was, I distinctly remember borrowing another family's disc deck and somehow making copies, which I'm sure was illegal. Of
hell yeah,
just several sets of Bugs Bunny cartoons, I think, and there probably was a Disney movie in there or two. And a couple of things, and then like being amazed by having these things on tape that we could watch at any point.
Yeah.
Now this was also interesting to me because I saw that 85 is the year that the first Blockbuster video store opened in Dallas, Texas. I have it on pretty good authority. I don't remember where I read this or if he told me this verbatim himself, but David Gordon Green, the director, was apparently one of the very first customers at that Blockbuster video store, which makes total sense.
Yeah.
I can just imagine him walking up there as a kid and waiting for this damn thing to open. And I love that. But I don't know. I mean, I feel like, this area is still kind of a blur of definitely Return of the Jedi, E.T., and then this year that we're about to talk about, Goonies, Back to the Future for sure. And then even things like Spies Like Us a little bit later when I was old enough to watch that. And just a ton of these movies. Which is really exciting. One of the big ones for me would be Pee-wee's Big Adventure, I think everybody's introduction to Tim Burton for the most part. A couple other little just film-specific things that happened this year before we talk really movie-specific. It looks like Sundance took over the Utah Film Festival. It started the process at least and was complete by 86, which I did not know that there was a film festival prior to Sundance that Robert Redford kind of put his stamp on as opposed to just starting it from the ground up. Also, I think this is the year that you're seeing a little bit of CGI trickle into movies. Notably, young Sherlock Holmes had a stained glass character, a knight, I believe, which I've seen bits and pieces of that. And then Black Cauldron also had, I think Pixar did the stained glass guy in Young Sherlock Holmes, which was a part of Lucasfilm. Right. And then I think Steve Jobs, I don't know exact timeline there, but it was all within either this year or the following year. And then Black Cauldron, I think, had a little bit of CG in it in some ways, which, again, we're going to get to all of that, but I know I had to see that movie and I don't remember much about it. Instead, and this is like the perfect example of what we're hoping to do in this little chunk of episodes, I remember seeing the freaking Care Bears movie in the theater,
Oh, wow.
And hey, it apparently made more money than the Black Cauldron, even though the budget on Black Cauldron was way, way, way bigger. And that was a huge disappointment for Disney, which is all part of this tapestry for this year that we're talking about. Why don't I go ahead and we'll walk you through the Academy Awards for the year in film 1985. Best Picture went to Out of Africa, which I think we discussed, Craig. Neither one of us have seen this movie, right?
Nope. It's heard about it. Still remember a Saturday Night Live bit with, I think it was Joan Cusack on Weekend Update, giving a terrible review to it because she said none of it, like, she had no idea why people thought this was funny. This is not a funny movie.
I am curious, like, do people rewatch that movie, or are people big Out of Africa fans out there? Sidney Pollack took home Best Director. And obviously, I mean, that dude was a master. So, amazing year for him. Best Actor, William Hurt, Kiss of the Spider Woman. Best Actress, Geraldine Page, Trip to Bountiful, which I think was, that had to be a surprise. That looks like, just based on the box office, it was not in the top 100 grossing films. So huge win for that small movie. Donna Michi from Cocoon, Best Supporting Actor, big year for Cocoon.
Awesome.
Angelica Houston, Supporting Actress from Pritzi's.
Hey, Prizzi.
Prizzana. Angelica Houston. Okay, that's enough Italian. Best Foreign Language Film, The Official Story, which I believe is also, Argentinian film. Never heard of that. No. I feel like that's got to be on our list.
Probably.
And Best Award of the Evening had to be Honorary Lifetime Achievement Award for Jeremy Stewart.
Oh, Jimmy.
I know, isn't that great? Golden Globes that year, nothing hugely shocking. Prizzi's Honor, clean house in the comedy musical department, but Whoopi Goldberg, huge win for Best Actress, Color Purple, and Jon Voight, Runaway Train, Best Actor. So
that's another one I really got to see. Yeah.
Yes, and maybe the most notable thing about the Oscars for the year 1985, Color Purple, Craig, 11 Academy Award nominations, 0 wins, which tied a record. And I don't know if that has been broken. I can't think of a movie that would have perhaps taken that out since then. But boy, I was surprised to know that. And that
Spielberg must have felt terrible.
He must have just hated himself. What a terrible year he had with Back to the Future. And all and Goonies just and everything.
Rolling around and crying in his money.
Yeah, that his name was attached to in this thing. Another just bit of trivia that I found hysterical and amazing from this year was that this was the year that brought us A View to a Kill, which was the 14th James Bond movie. One of the early ones I think that I saw. I doubt I saw this in the theater. That would be a bit crazy for an 8-year-old. Sure. That said, I feel like I probably watched it on video. It was sometime before I was 12.
Right.
Roger Moore was 57 years old at the time, and at some point he found out that he was older than the mother of his female co-star, Tanya Roberts, and that just makes me very, very happy.
I like the fact that it's even a story that he had any reaction to that. That makes me like Roger Moore a lot.
Yeah,
I wish he hadn't already left us.
Well, and I think very soon after that, he was like, "Yeah, I'm done playing James Bond. It's not happening again." This was also a big year. Those of us that remember Brigitte Nielsen, the actress, who unfortunately, and this is the kind of thing that I think as a kid, I definitely didn't pick up on. Red Sonja, huge flop. Fiasco. This would definitely be one that I would love to spend some time looking into the backstory of and doing in a full episode. A slew of Razzie nominations and victories that year, I think, for that movie and for her in particular. And then, if I'm not mistaken, she was in Rocky IV. Yes, as the wife of Dolph Lundgren?
Stallone.
No? She was Stallone's wife. Okay, see, it's been a long time since I've seen that one too. But actually, maybe that's a good segue then. Why don't let's look at this box office.
One thing I want to bring up too.
Okay.
That's just good in a general history sense. That was a huge change in movies in general, and led to the downfall of some of these movies that we love so much, or this kind of movie that kids could go see. This is the first year of the PG-13 rating, brought on by Gremlins, I think, and Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom from the year before, which everybody thought that stuff's way too intense and younger kids shouldn't go see it. But imagine a time when PG, if something was PG, my parents would be like, you can go see that. They took me to see Poltergeist, right? They took me to see anything that was PG. Yeah, and I saw stuff I was not ready for, and part of me misses that. And I kind of wish that wasn't true now. But, so that's the other thing. This is the year where you're starting to see PG-13 movies. But yeah, let's go more into the box office.
Well, and I would say, and it was successful. There's a great article, which we'll share from The Atlantic, about how this really was sort of the headline here is the last great year in film for kids and young adults. And to quote Ebert in his review of The Goonies, they selected a passage where he said, "There used to be children's movies and adult movies. Now Spielberg has found an in-between niche for young teenagers who have fairly sophisticated tastes in horror. His technique is to take his 13 and 14-year-olds and let them act a little older than their age. It's more refreshing than the old Disney technique, which was to take characters of all ages and have them behave as if they were 12. I think that's a really interesting observation, and also one to think about now, where I feel like there's exceptions. I haven't seen the new Spider-Man, but it looks like that one is probably making an exception. But boy, I feel like there's a lot of movies that have young people and teenagers acting like 35-year-olds going through life and death situations in these movies where they have to save the world, and there's a lot hanging on their shoulders where it's like instead of just aging them, like letting them act like they're a year or two older than they are, they're having to act like they're 20 years older than they are, and that's kind of interesting in and of itself. But also just from this year, let's see here, also in this article they mentioned that the biggest group of moviegoers, indeed, in '85 was viewers 12 through 24, and that's changed substantially too. In 2013, it was definitely people over the age of 25 versus those under. They say that is changing a little bit, and I'd be curious to see exactly what it is now. But it feels like, that PG-13 rating, it had a significant impact. And it sort of divided these movies into camps, I think, in a weird way, as far as where they fell within the box office, Mm-hmm. And it's interesting to look at it through the filter of nostalgia, because as we get into this list here, a movie like Better Off Dead, which, good God almighty, I mean, I must have seen that movie 1,000 times
Easily.
on video, right? It finished 82nd in the box office that year, beneath something like The Purple Rose of Cairo, which, maybe it should, because that's a Woody Allen movie. But still, in my head, I'm like, no, this is like a major milestone of a movie, for teenagers in this big youth culture of the time. But
and I think it's probably a weird enough movie to still hold up.
For sure.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll find out. I definitely would love to revisit that movie. It's been a long time.
Yeah.
But let's go down through the top 10 of 1984 first, because there's another article from NPR about the substantial importance of that year's top 10. We've got Beverly Hills Cop, number 1, Ghostbusters, Indiana Jones, Temple of Doom, Gremlins, Karate Kid, Police Academy, Footloose, Romancing the Stone, Star Trek 3, and Splash. And what they pointed out was every single one of those movies, either a sequel itself, created a sequel, or a remake. And apparently Splash had a TV movie called Splash 2 at some point, because they thought that was the exception.
True. Oh boy. And
their point being, this was really the year that we started watching franchises. I think you could argue James Bond, maybe, it was happening before then, Star Wars perhaps.
Right.
But as far as dominating the box office, it's really interesting. So here we are, 85, top 10. Some similarity, but some key differences, I think. Back to the Future, monster hit, over $200 million. I believe I read it would not be until 89 when Batman came out that another movie topped $200 million. Big coup for them. Rambo, First Blood Part 2 was number 2. And then, man, what a right-left combo for Stallone. You got Rocky IV at number 3. I mean, those two movies, he's over $300 million. And at the time, I mean, that's crazy because, folks, these were the only 3 movies that made over $100 million. Last year, there were exactly 30 movies that made over $100 million. So that's...
I mean, that's the thing, Like, even as a kid, I remember if something passed $100 million at the box office, that was enormous. Like the ticket prices, the average ticket price, I think, around this time is like $3.50. So it's like anything to pass $100 million is tons of people are going to see it. It's a big deal.
And for $200 million for Back to the Future is just...
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's so gargantuan. And it's also, by the way, $60 million more than Rambo made. So, I mean, they just left that in the dust.
I mean, just it must have been like tons of repeat viewing, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
it had to be. But also, I think across that audience spectrum, too, they got everybody in there, which is interesting for a movie about a guy who has to go back in time and date his mom, right? But we'll save that for later when we talk Back to the Future. Okay, so number 4 gets interesting because that's where Color Purple slots. And then right after that, you got Out of Africa. And right after that, you got Cocoon. 3 movies, bam, 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 top 10, clearly targeting an audience over, I'd say 40 at least, you know, in most cases. But obviously they had to find some play in that sort of like 24 and up crowd, or never would have probably reached those numbers, I suspect. I don't know. We'll dive into that later. You got
I will say this about Cocoon is I remember seeing that as a kid, and like it felt like I was watching a grown-up movie, but it was also like I was entertained by the entire thing.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
So yeah, like
it's got laughs.
I haven't watched it in a long time.
Science fiction,
but it does make me wonder.
You know, yeah. I think there's all that.
Like it's a crowd pleaser.
Yeah, and like same with something like Jewel of the Nile, which was number 7. You got Witness. I mean, for the love of God, Witness. I mean, what an amazing movie that is. Number 8, Goonies, number 9, and number 10, Spies Like Us. I'd be remiss if I didn't point out number 11 is Police Academy 2, and number 12 is Fletch. And I mean, it goes on and on and on, and we'll get to that too. But I want to stop there for just a second, you know, because, you know, as we said, you've got at least 3 movies that are playing to older audience. I would probably slot Witness and Jewel of the Nile in there to a degree as well, even though you've got kind of well-established action stars, male action stars in the leads of those 2 movies. But let's take a look at 2016 top 10 for just a second. Number 1, Rogue One. Number 2, Finding Dory. Captain America: Civil War. Secret Life of Pets. Jungle Book. Deadpool. Zootopia. Batman vs. Superman. Suicide Squad. Sing. Obviously, I think every single one of those is either a sequel or will have a sequel. I suspect. Even Sing and Suicide Squad, and it's funny to think about, you know, Suicide Squad being this big flop, or Batman versus Superman, and there they are. Both of them made over $300 billion.
Sure.
Which, you know, I mean, it's crazy.
Well, the other thing too is if you look at the number ones of 2016 and 1985. So Rogue One opened in 4,000 theaters. Whereas Back to the Future was never played in more than like 1,500, 1,600 theaters. Like, yeah, I mean, there's so many more screens to see this stuff on, and so much more money being brought in.
And I believe Back to the Future stuck around at number 1 for, let's see here, 12 straight weeks.
Yeah. Yeah, movies would play for a lot longer.
Yeah.
Like now they're gone in 2 or 3 weeks, like even if they're just not complete smashes.
Yeah. But also I think it's really, to me, the key difference between 85 and this year, when you're just talking box office, I don't see a single movie in the the top 10 from 2016 that is squarely aimed at the adult drama crowd versus arguably 4 or 5 that would at least overlap with that audience in 85.
Right.
And it just...
like you have to get down to like number 14. Like Hidden Figures is probably like the first one that's...
I think so. You know, you could argue Jason Bourne is, but even that, you know, is still like such an action movie. You know, maybe La La Land at 19 is the big sort of surprise that's playing to that art house adult audience, but clearly that had crossover with younger crowds. So it's just, you know, it's a different time, different animal. But I'm just going to randomly go through this list because there's so many to point out. I mean, European Vacation, Mask, the movie Mask, Cher, number 15. I mean, that's a big $48 million success movie, which I had no idea was that huge. You got Breakfast Club, Pale Rider, Pee-wee's Big Adventure, Brewster's Million, E.T. E.T. was reissued and still made $40 million. It's insane. St. Elmo's Fire, Beyond Thunderdome, Mad Max, Commando, Teen Wolf, Nightmare on Elm Street 2, which is one I think we both really want to look at. You know, some of these like horror films that year, and also just sequels in general. You got Desperately Seeking Susan, Madonna's on the scene there. Fright Night, classic. Summer Rental, in my head, that's a classic. I don't know if it still is or not. Maybe I'm crazy. But boom, Summer Rental, Emerald Forest, and Weird Science, right there, all 3 in a row. And if you had told me that Emerald Forest made more money than Weird Science, I'd slap you in the face, Craig.
Yeah, well, yeah, but you're a violent person.
I know.
But I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah, I'd never even heard of this movie until it was suggested to us by Heath, and there it is. Yeah. I don't even remember looking it up when we watched it, even thinking it was possible that was like a top 40 movie of that year. But it was. It was ahead of Weird Science even. You got Care Bears.
Yeah, they were making the movies for late night basic cable before they even knew they were doing it.
Exactly, which is a fantastic thing. And so, yeah, you got some big properties here. You got Care Bears. You got Friday the 13th Part 5, which is crazy to me that they were that far along. I don't know that timeline too well. Black Cauldron, we mentioned, was a flop, 21 million. Porky's Revenge, the third one of Porky's. Volunteers, which I think is a Tom Hanks movie I'd never heard of. Young Sherlock Holmes. Invasion USA is a big, Chuck Norris land again here. We're talking Kiss the Spider Woman, Death Wish 3, King Solomon's Mines, Clue. Yep. I thought Clue was a much more successful movie. 57 overall. Baby, Secret of the Lost Legend, the dinosaur thing that I know I saw in the theater, did better than Clue. Return of the Living Dead. You've got Vision Quest, Real Genius, Silver Bullet, Enemy Mine. Return of the Jedi, it was reissued. Just One of the Guys. Return to Oz, which my daughter just watched a little the other day and seemed really intrigued by. But I didn't know. I mean, that was another like substantial disaster movie, which we'll probably need to look at. Some interesting ones that I think will be of note for just straight up film fans, cinephiles here, and at least on the director front, kind of happening in the last third of the top 100. Purple Rose of Cairo, which I mentioned, Woody Allen. After Hours, I mean, love that Scorsese movie. And I think that was like a big moment for him to kind of get back into the swing of things. Like if I remember correctly, what was the movie he made before that? It wasn't Age of Innocence, was it? No, that was well after. Anyway, if I remember my history correctly, he needed to kind of recenter himself and just make a movie that he could enjoy making, and I think it was After Hours.
Oh, he made King of Comedy before that.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And so, obviously that movie has its fans now and like this cult status, but I think at the time it was not that. Better Off Dead that we talked about. Lost in America, Albert Brooks, I love that movie. You got Brazil in here, the Terry Gilliam thing, 85. What was the other one? Well, the big one for me is actually not even in the top 100, and this makes sense to me. But it's the debut of the Coen brothers. Blood Simple, Where Are Ya? Sorry, I lost it.
I think it's on the next page, right?
It is, but it's so far down here. Okay, it's 138th out of the top
out of 180.
Yeah. Even on this back half, Transylvania 6-5000, which I loved that freaking movie.
Yeah.
Had Kramer from Seinfeld was in there. Red Sonja, a big flop that we mentioned. Heaven Help Us, which we did an episode on. I really enjoyed that movie. Jim Cotta, I definitely remember that. Yeah. Rainbow Bright's flopping around in here, doing her Rainbow Bright thing. You've got Ron, the Kurosawa movie. And so, when you get back down into the bottom here, it's like, okay, there's some foreign films and there's some other stuff in here. Obviously, there's probably some terrible things. Mishima, which I think is a Paul Schrader film, that's back there.
Oh, wow.
So, it is kind of interesting to look beyond this, but it just felt like this is an incredibly deep year. Teen Wolf was number 26.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you have a year like that as an actor in Michael J. Fox's sort of like youth?
Well, partially, as I understand it, Teen Wolf was not going to come out for a good while.
Oh, really?
But then Back to the Future came out and immediately just blew everything away.
Yeah,
and I think they just, because I remember watching Back to the Future and of course loving it, and then seeing that was out, and I remember going to it almost just because of Back to the Future. That was kind of the thought process. It's like, oh, that guy.
Yeah,
from Back
exactly.
to the Future.
I mean, I'm sure it gave them a boost. I don't
know
if I saw that in the theaters or not, but oh gosh, I just loved that movie.
Yeah, me too. I've watched that so many times.
So I think, I don't know. maybe we'll look back at, one of these years in the 2000s and feel like, holy cow, like that was a monumental year that's really deep and just has movies that people enjoy and embrace, whether they're, it's obviously a lot of these movies are never going to be considered classics.
Yeah. But
they meant something to people, and I think they're still in the conversation a little bit.
For sure.
And I think that's fascinating. There's some great stuff on the web. We're going to share as much as we can keep up with. You got to see the promo from Paramount that I think they sent to exhibitors for that year, where I think we referenced this up front, but I guess Top Gun was originally called Top Guns, which it just sounds so stupid to say, doesn't it?
Yeah, I know. It sounds really dumb. And there's other stuff that's like just kind of a little bit off the mark, where it's clearly they were planning on making the two Jakes for 1985. Like Jack Nicholson reprises his role.
Oh,
it was like, not for like another few years.
Yeah.
It was really disappointing after Chinatown. But what was the other one? They talk about Spielberg doing Peter Pan.
Hook, yeah, basically. I think Hook was in development that early on, and they were certainly talking about his box office draw just as a name, and rightfully so.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And
then there's a great Entertainment Tonight sort of like summer preview for the year where, they talk with the producer of this Return to Oz fiasco, which they didn't know was going to be a fiasco at the time, obviously.
Right.
They talk about Explorers looking like one of the films to beat of the summer. And, it's just fun to kind of look at all this stuff with the presence of hindsight. And I don't know. The biggest thing for me is wondering, like you say, will these movies of today have this kind of like staying power? Because they do seem to come, grab their money, and are out of the conversation in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And are across the board successes despite that.
Right.
Well,
it's something, just this past week, Dunkirk came out. We've done some talking about that. And that's one of those things where there have been so many reviews just out of the gate about what a masterpiece it is.
Right.
And how perfect a movie it is.
And did well at the box office.
And it did well at the box office. I mean, it got people in. And it's definitely a good movie. But it's one of those, like, when you get those kind of reviews, like, it makes me wonder, like, 10 years from now, are we still talking about Dunkirk?
Yeah, exactly. Even in the same way that, like, we may end up talking about something like Fletch,
Right.
Or think about Pee-wee's Big Adventure. Yeah, like, I mean, that, it's a great movie.
What were those moments that you will never forget from Dunkirk? That you're just like, when other movies do something like it, you'll be like, oh, but in Dunkirk.
Yeah.
Like that kind of stuff. The other thing, and this is what I wanted to ask, just to bring everything back to a personal tip, because I feel like we're kind of winding down with our foundational stuff.
I think so, yeah.
My question to you is, at this point in your life, how far up the ass of movies was your head?
Oh, but not far at all, really, honestly.
Oh, okay.
No, just as a moviegoer, and knowing that I liked, Star Wars and the toys of it, and was into seeing cool, exciting things. And I mean, Goonies obviously is such a huge part of the childhood there. I mean, that was the one where I walked away from and immediately went home, and we taped flashlights to our bicycles. And we'll save some of this for the Goonies episode.
Nice.
But yeah, this was like,
sure.
For me, it was just movies were the things to take home with me and then act them out and pretend to be a part of,
Yes.
And obviously, I think, we're not idiots here. Obviously, maybe the real discussion to be had will be about like our kids and what they're watching now, and trying to predict what will be the movies that they've seen, in their early ages. And the kids, under the age of 12 are watching from the past decade. What, is there a Breakfast Club for them that they're going to walk away from, or a Pee-wee's Big Adventure? Like, what are those movies that might have that chance of having those kind of cultural cornerstones? It's cool. It's exciting. What about you? I mean, were you even aware of the process of filmmaking at that age?
Well, I didn't. Well, no. Outside of watching the Star Wars, how the effects were done, things,
movie magic,
which I think I saw a number of times, and was just so blown away by. And then shortly thereafter, finding out that my dad had an 8mm camera.
Nice.
I just remember me constantly begging him, "Can we make a movie with like these toys that I have?" And he was always like, "Yeah."
Yeah.
And we never did. And thinking back on it, like it would have been really disappointing if I had made those.
No,
because
no way.
in my mind, I'm just saying, like in my mind, it was going to look exactly like the Star Wars movies, and like I still would have had fun with it, and I probably would have gone places with it. But like in my mind, we were going to get an 8mm camera, and I was going to be able to do exactly what those movies did.
Yeah,
and
some miniatures, and you're off and running. Yeah,
exactly.
Some nice
So
matte paintings.
Some bearded guys hanging around.
Yeah,
but. Yeah, like between that stuff and, you know, having seen Poltergeist and so on, like I feel like so much of my childhood was spent, much like you were just saying, like me pretending I'm in a movie. I mean, stuff like E.T., like stuff, Spielberg movies especially felt so much like what my life was like. Mm-hmm. Just like, here's normal life. And you're like, yeah, that's normal life. Like I feel like I could be someone in a movie. Right. And I identified so hard with movies. Anything that seemed like it was a part of a movie or anything that sold itself as being movie-like, like I had to watch it. I was so pulled into all of that. So I just remember that.
And it's interesting then that his one actual like directorial contribution to 85 was a movie that was not at all intended for kids. Yeah, it was Color Purple.
Oh yeah.
So his I don't know. I guess that was really his sort of first foray into straight drama. Yeah, if memory serves.
Well, I mean, it was absolutely his Oscar.
Yeah.
Bid, like his first one, you know, like, I'd kind of like to watch that again.
Yeah, I think we'll have to. So well, on that note, again, if you have suggestions for pairings, specifically looking for things that maybe, you know, are a less successful but related film to one of these kind of like monster hits or movies that really kind of everybody knows from this year, that'd be great. We'd love to hear that. And we're going to do a couple of these and we'll see what we can kind of get out of them and juice out of them. I think, there's an opportunity to also talk about just more than two movies. I mean, certainly, when we get into the Stallone, Bronson, Schwarzenegger, Norris competition that's going on in this year, it might be kind of fun to kind of widen the lens a little bit and look at them all. Can't leave out Mel Gibson, Mad Max. Sorry. So I mean, it's an interesting time period for movies. Certainly, change was around the corner in a lot of ways, and I'm excited to dive into it some more, dude.
Absolutely, Shawn. I'll see you next time. In 1985.
And you may not talk. You will not move from these seats.
All right, cool.